Hi, I'm Elizabeth Smith, a knitting designer and instructor. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to work the German short rows in my top-down raglan sweater pullover design called the downbeat. Although this demo is specific to this particular pattern, all the techniques that I'm working could definitely be used if you wanted to add short rows to a different top-down raglan pattern. So as I said, this demonstration is going to be based on my sweater called the downbeat. And so in that pattern, you worked ribbing at first, and then you placed markers. So this green marker here is my beginning of round, and that actually marks one side of my back. And then this marker is the other side of my back. And then this here is my right sleeve. And right and left are from the perspective of wearing the garment. So if you can imagine, this is the back, this is my right sleeve. Between these markers is my front, and then this is my left sleeve. And then I placed a locking stitch marker just on the outside of the fabric here to help differentiate between where my back is and the front is, because otherwise it's kind of hard to tell. And I find that to be helpful as I'm working the short rows. And another important thing is that my beginning of round marker is a different color and style than my other markers, and I highly recommend that. So in the short row section for this pattern, you're not only working the short rows, but you're also working your raglan shaping at each of your raglan markers. So in row 1, which is short row 1, step 1 says to first knit 1 and then make 1 left. So I've already knit 1, so now I just need to make 1 left. So I go into the front of the loop here, from front to back, and then knit into the back. If you need a tutorial on make 1 left and make 1 right, I'll make sure to put a link to that down below. Then it says to knit across the back to 1 stitch before the next marker. Okay, so 1 stitch before the next marker, and so then it just says to make 1 right. So I'm going to pick up that strand from back to front and then knit into the front of it. And then it says to knit 1 and then just slip the marker. And then the next step says to knit 1 and then make 1 left. And then to knit across the right sleeve to 1 stitch before the next marker. Okay, so 1 stitch before the next marker. And so now we do a make 1 right, knit 1, and then slip the marker. And so as the pattern says, now we are on our front stitches here. And so this is where things get a little bit different. So first I'm going to do a knit 1, make 1 left, as my pattern says, because I'm still working my increases there. But then it says to just knit 2 and then turn the work. So this is going to be our first short row. So I literally am just going to turn the work. So now the wrong side is facing me. And so this now begins row 2. So short row 2. And so the first step is to do a DS, which is a double stitch. And to do a double stitch when the wrong side of the work is facing you, first you're going to keep the yarn in the front of the work like this. You're going to slip this first stitch on your left needle purlwise, so just like this. Then you're going to take your working yarn and you want to lift it so that the leg of this stitch shows 2 of the loops. So see how when I did that, now I have 2 loops. So that's what's creating a double stitch there. Sort of keep it tight, just like that. Okay, so we've done our DS or double stitch. Then it says to purl to the beginning of round marker, slipping markers as we reach them. So again, remember our beginning of round marker I'd used as my green marker. So I want to purl now all of these stitches until I get there. So now I got to bring the yarn to the front of the work and I will purl until I reach that beginning of round marker. And when I encounter one of my other raglan markers like this, I just slip it from left needle to right needle. Okay, so I've just about reached my beginning of round marker. And so then on the next step, it says to purl across the left sleeve to the next marker. So I'm just gonna slip the beginning of round marker and now just purl to my next marker. Okay, so now I just slip this marker and now it says I'm gonna be on my front stitches. And so if I look, if you kind of get confused where you're at, this is why I liked placing a locking marker on the back. I can confirm, oh yeah, I am now back on my front. And so then the last step of this row is to purl 3, it says, and then turn the work. So just literally turn the work. And so now the right side is facing us again. And so that brings us to row 3, short row 3. And step 1 is to work a double stitch again. But because we're on the right side of the row, I need to bring the yarn to the front of the work. And so this is how you do a double stitch on the right side. I'm holding the yarn in the front. I'm going to slip this stitch purlwise. So I'm going to insert the right needle into the front of the stitch, just as if you were going to purl it, but then just slip it over to the right needle. And then you're going to take the working yarn and you're going to lift it up so that you're showing 2 legs, just like that, of this stitch. So lift it up just like that. So once I see the 2 legs, then I know my double stitch has been created. And so then the pattern says to knit 1. Then it says to make 1 right. If you ever find it's hard to get into the stitch to work a make 1 afterwards, what I like to do is sort of give it some slack like this, and then it's easier for your needle to get in, just like that. Okay, so then I knit 1 and I slip the marker. And then the next step says to knit 1 and then make 1 left. Then knit across the left sleeve to 1 stitch before the beginning of round marker, which is our next marker, as you can see right here. Okay, so then we're 1 stitch before and it says to do a make 1 right. And then knit 1, slip marker. And then step 4 says to knit 1, make 1 left, and then knit across the back stitches. And I can confirm I'm on my back again because here's my locking marker. I'm going to knit across the back to 1 stitch before the next marker. Okay, so then I'm going to do a make 1 right. And then I'm going to knit 1, slip marker. And then the next step says to knit 1, make 1 left. Then knit across these right sleeve stitches to 1 stitch before the next marker. And then we're going to do a make 1 right. And then knit 1. And then slip marker. And again, it says now we're on the front, which we are. And so then we're going to do a knit 1, make 1 left. And then it says to knit to 2 stitches past the previous DS. And then it also says knitting DS together as you reach it. So we're going to knit to 2 stitches past the double stitch. And so I like to kind of find the double stitch first. I can tell here it is right here. You can tell, you know, these look like regular stitches. And then this one, it has that double loop appearance. So I want to knit to 2 stitches past that. And we're going to work that double stitch together as we reach it. So first I'm going to knit these 2. All right, so here's our double stitch. And so to work it, what you want to do, I like to move things nice to the kind of the end of the needle tip here. I'm going to insert the right needle into both of these loops, just like that. So I'm going through both of them. I'll flip it so you can see. And again, I like to keep things close to the needle tip. I find that just makes a neater looking short row turn when I do that. And I'm going to knit them together, just like that. And I kind of give a little bit of a tug. And now I'm just going to knit 2 because it said to knit 2 stitches past the previous double stitch. There we go, just like that. And so then it says to turn the work. So we'll turn the work. And now we're on row 4, short row 4. And similar to our previous wrong side, we're going to do a double stitch on the wrong side of the work. So I have the yarn in the front already. I'm going to slip this next stitch purlwise, then take my working yarn and lift it up so that I show 2 legs of this stitch just like that. And then I'm going to bring the yarn to the front of the work because it says to then purl to the beginning of round marker. Okay, so I've reached my beginning of round marker, I slip it, and then it says to purl across the left sleeve to the next marker. Okay, so then I slip the marker. It says we're now on the front, which we are, and it says to purl to 2 stitches past the previous double stitch, purling the double stitch together as we reach it. So similar to what we had done on the other side, except we're doing everything purlwise. And so I'm going to purl until I get to the double stitch, which I can tell here it is because I see the 2 legs, the 2 loops. And similar to what we had done on the right side, I like to keep things close to the end of the needle tips here. But I'm going to insert the right needle into both of those loops of the double stitch on my left needle, just like that, and then purl them together, just like that. And then I'm just going to purl 2 more because it said to go to 2 stitches past the previous double stitch, and then we turn the work. And that brings us to row 5, short row 5. And so it says to do a double stitch first. So again, because we're on the right side, we bring the yarn to the front of the work like this, slip this stitch, take the working yarn, bring it up like this to show 2 legs of the stitch. And then I follow the rest of the instructions, which is then to knit to 1 stitch before the marker. Then I'm going to do my make 1 right. And then knit 1 and slip marker. And then step 2 says to knit 1, make 1 left. And then I'm going to knit across the left sleeve to 1 stitch before the beginning of round marker. Okay, then I'm at my 1 stitch before beginning of round. I do a make 1 right. Then I do a knit 1 and then slip marker. And then for the next step, I do a knit 1 and then make 1 left. And then knit across the back to 1 stitch before the next marker. And so you can see how, with all of this turning and everything, it can be a little confusing if you put your work down or you lose track of where you're at, of where your front and your back are. So again, that's why I had placed this locking marker on the back, so it helps to serve as a guide. Okay, so 1 stitch now before the next marker. And so I will make 1 right. And then knit 1 and slip the marker. And then step 4 says to knit 1, make 1 left. And then knit across the right sleeve to 1 stitch before the next marker. Okay, so 1 stitch before the next marker, and so then it says to make 1 right, and then to knit 1, slip marker, and it says that we're on the front, which we indeed are. And so then it says to knit 1, make 1 left, and then similar to our previous right side row short row, it says to knit to 2 stitches past the previous double stitch, knitting the double stitch together as we reach it. So I'm just knitting until I encounter the double stitch, which there it is. I can see because it looks like a funny stitch. It has these 2 loops to it. So just like we had done before, I like to kind of keep everything at the end of the needle tips here a bit. So I'm going to take my right needle, insert it into both of those loops or legs, however you want to put it. Here's another view. So I'm going through both, keeping things right at the edge of my needle tips there, and knit the double stitch together. And then it had said to knit to 2 stitches past this. So I'll just knit 2. And then we turn our work. So now we are on row 6, our short row 6, wrong side row. Start with a double stitch. So again, the working yarn is already in the front of my work here. I'm going to slip this stitch, take the working yarn, lift it up to bring up 2 legs of this stitch. And then I'm going to bring the yarn to the front of the work because we are going to be purling. And first, I'm going to purl to the beginning of round marker. Okay, so I've reached my beginning of round marker, so I will slip the marker. And then step 2 says to purl across the left sleeve to the next marker. Okay, so I slip the marker, and now we're on our front again. And it says to purl to 2 stitches past the previous double stitch, purling the double stitch together when we encounter it. So I'm just purling until I get to the previous double stitch, which here it is. You can always tell, looks like not quite a normal stitch. It's got these 2 loops. So then I'm going to take the right needle, I'm going to insert it into both of the loops here, and then purl them together, just like that. And then I'm just going to purl 2, since we were purling to 2 stitches past the double stitch, and then return the work. And so then you're at the part where we'll finalize the short rows. And so that means resolving the final double stitches and then going back to working in the round. So step 1 of this is to first double stitch, and then we're going to work to 1 stitch before the next marker. Then make 1 right, knit 1, slip marker, knit 1, make 1 left, then knit across the left sleeve stitches to 1 stitch before the beginning of round, then make 1 right, and then a knit 1. Then in step 2, you'll slip the beginning of round marker and then knit across the back to the next marker. Then you'll slip marker, then knit across the right sleeve to the next marker, then slip marker, and now we're on our front stitches. Then in step 3, we're going to knit across our front to the first double stitch you encounter. So I'm now right before my first double stitch, and so just like we've been doing, I'll insert my needle into both legs and knit them together. Then in step 4, it says to knit to 1 stitch before the next double stitch. So I will do that now. Okay, so I'm now at 1 stitch before the double stitch. And so that brings us to step 4. And we have to reconcile this last double stitch a little differently than our previous ones because we're going to work in the round again. And so it's worked a little bit differently because otherwise there becomes a little bit of a hole if it's done in sort of the typical way that you would do it by just knitting the loops together. So this is a little trick that I had learned years ago that I find works really well. So we're 1 stitch before the double stitch, and it says to slip 1 knitwise. So I'm going to take this stitch and I'm going to go into it as if to knit. So just like this, and slip it over to the right needle. Then it says to slip the first leg of the double stitch purlwise. So this is the first leg right here. I'm going to insert my right needle into it as if to purl, so into the front of it, just like this, and slip it over. And then it says to insert the left needle into the fronts of these 2 stitches on the right needle and knit them together tightly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my left needle, I'm going to go into both of these stitches just like this. I'm going to take the working yarn, wrap it around the right needle tip, and knit them together. And then when I'm done knitting, because I want to keep it tight, I'm going to kind of pull it a little bit. Just make sure that you're keeping this other leg of that double stitch still on the left needle. Because then what we're going to do is to knit stitch up through the back loop. So what I'm going to do is insert my right needle into the back of this stitch. So I'm going to turn it like that so you can see I'm going into the back of the stitch and then knitting it. And then I give a little bit of a tug as well. And then it just says to knit to the beginning of round, slipping the final marker as you reach it. Okay, so let's take a look now, because now our short rows are done. So in this particular pattern, there's then a stitch count. So double check that to make sure that you have the right number of stitches. But here was our back. So between these markers are our front. And as you can see, the short rows did a nice job. They're really invisible. You really can't see where those turns were made. That's what's really nice about working the German short rows, because I find they are the most invisible ones. But as you can see, we have kind of all this extra, there's definitely more fabric on the back area and on the sleeves than on the front. If you look at the front and how many stitches, or how many rows, I should say, you have between the ribbing and here, there's not many, right? But look at the back. We have all of these. So we've definitely, risen the back. So that means the front is going to wind up sitting lower than the back. And that's what creates kind of that nice sloped looking front neckline. So that's it. I hope seeing how I work short rows in a top-down raglan for this particular pattern has been helpful, whether you're working on this particular pattern or perhaps you want to experiment and add short rows to a different raglan pattern. Happy knitting!